Chuck Hillig, thank you for joining me. Very much appreciated.
I am so happy to be here and to talk to you. Thanks.
Yeah, Chuck, I come across you maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I listened to your Buddha at the gas pump conversation, maybe 10 years ago now, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And then I watched you on the Science and Non-Duality conference, I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago. We did a conversation. Right. And I thought, yeah, let's get him on and have a conversation and see where it goes. So, Chuck, you've written numerous books. You do conferences and everything. Do you mind going into some of the story of Chuck Hillig? So, for the people that are listening, there's a bit of a reference point.
Yeah, I know that's always a question that shows up, and I'm always a little bit disconcerted as to how the best way to approach that, because it's like then I'm kind of being the character, and I'm going to go back, and I'm in like Act 4 of a play, and I got to go back to what this character was doing in Act 2 and describe how he woke up. But there's really no character there at all. There's really only the actor, and the actor, of course, doesn't change at all. The actor doesn't get awakened. The actor doesn't suddenly get enlightened or have any kind of discovery. That's just part and parcel of the avatar that he's playing. And so this Chuck Hillig gig that I'm on right now is just the avatar of consciousness, because that's all there is. It's the same consciousness that underlies you, me, and everything else that we think and know and love.
Yeah, it's always a difficult one because I like to start the conversation with that. But
okay, I will tell.
There are a few. But let me say, Chuck, there are a few people who are okay and they share it all, and there are the other half of the people are like, well, if I tell a story, it's going to put ideas into people's minds, and they're trying to grasp onto them. Okay. So yeah,
got it. All right. Well, let me tell you a story then.
Yeah, tell us a story. Yeah.
Long time ago in a universe far, far away, I used to be a Catholic. I was raised as a Catholic. In Catholic grade school with the Sisters of St. Joseph, a Catholic high school with the Dominican priests, a Catholic university with the Jesuits. I had a very good education, but deeply steeped in all things Catholic and Catholic related. And around the time I was 21, 22, I began to become disenchanted with what they were, the hardline Catholic party line. It was just hard for me to accept and embrace anymore as much as I used to in the old days before that. And I began to ask questions. And the questions that I was asking were questions that weren't easily answered by the priests, even the Jesuits. And I began to take some steps back from my strong belief before. And in a sense, I kind of went into a spiritual wasteland for like 2 or 3 years. I did not know what I was believing. I was kind of tossing around and thinking, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. And I'd gotten married meanwhile, and I married a very sincere Catholic girl. I mean, she went to sleep with a rosary in one hand and a statue of Mary in the other. And I mean, it was really, she was hardcore. And I was drifting away. I had drifted away. And I was working at that point as a caseworker for the Bureau of Child Welfare in New York City. And a friend of mine said, oh, you got to go read this book called Siddhartha. And I went, what's that? And I never thought very much about it. And then I went to a bookstore a couple of weeks later, and right there, eye level, there it was staring at me. And I said, wow, I'll check that out. And I did. When I read Siddhartha, it changed my mind. It changed my heart, really. It opened me up to so many other feelings and vistas. And one of the things that I remember feeling was some sense of anger, even regret, as to the lack of attention that my Jesuit teachers had paid to things that were Eastern related. They would be very dismissive about that, saying Hinduism, Buddhism, they don't have the way, we've got the way. And aren't you lucky that you're one of us? That kind of thing. And, our tribe is better than your tribe. And so then when I read that book, and it moved me to such an extent, such a degree, I just opened my heart up and started to read everything I could on Buddhism and Hinduism, Taoism and Zen, and went back to Taoism. And then The years go on, a little fast forward here. Around, I was like 29, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, you have to go read something about or by Sri Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi." And I went, "You mean Maharishi Mahesh Yogi?" He says, "No, no, no, Ramana Maharshi." I went, "Okay." So he gave me this book, and it was the talks with Ramana Maharshi. And when I started to read those dialogues and see what he had written and see the connections that he had made with the people, I just melted away, and I've been figuratively at his feet since that time. And that was like, well, I'm almost 83 years old, which is kind of amazing. How did that ever happen? But for like more than 52 years, I've been really at the feet of Ramana Maharshi, surrendered totally to him. I've been to his ashram a couple of times. So then at that point, I went down that road of looking for what he was pointing at, and kept on going further and further on into that space, if there is indeed a going further into it.
Mm. And when you say what Sri Ramana Maharshi was pointing to, you mean the self-inquiry, the who am I, the essential nature?
Right. The inquiry is really, the who am I, and I always like to kind of rephrase it as what am I, because who seems to imply for a lot of people that there's a person involved, and that if it's not me that I'm talking about, then who is this who? But maybe there's no who. So what seems better for me to grasp onto? So what am I? And then of course from Ramana Maharshi, it's an easy segue into, well, maybe not for some, but for some, into Nisargadatta Maharaj, who says, I am that. And so I read a lot of his books and went down that, whatever he was being into. In fact, I went over to his place in Mumbai. This was after he died, but I went over there to his place where he used to hold those satsangs in Mumbai.
Mm. Yeah, I'm reading his book at the moment again for like the third time. Maharaj at the moment, yeah. Yeah, so I've got a lot of questions, Chuck. I believe you were a psychotherapist. Is that correct?
That's true. I've been a state licensed psychotherapist in California since 1978. So we're talking, 45 years or so. Yeah.
Are you still practicing now? Or?
Well, yes and no. I'm still state licensed. However, since I'm currently a permanent resident of the state of Virginia, I have to have my license be inactive. But it's still, I'm still licensed in California, but it's inactive, which means that if somebody comes and wants to deal with psychotherapy and stuff with me, that's fine, but they can't go to their insurance company and get reimbursed for this at all.
Okay.
But I was in practice for professional practice for decades in California. I was in private practice for about more than 2 decades. And I also worked at psychiatric hospitals running group therapy and treatment programs. I worked as a clinical counselor at a Navy base for about 5 years, and dealt with a lot of the guys coming back from the sand with PTSD and their family issues and things like that. So I've had quite a good range of therapeutic experiences with literally thousands and thousands of people in various stages of distress, from little kids all the way up to people older than me.
Mm. The reason I'd like to bring this up and ask, I've asked numerous people, what value does psychotherapy have in the dream world, let's call it, for the lack of a better term?
Sure.
It's like proposing a dream solution to a dream problem. Would that be correct?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it does. A good therapist will help you to find ways of coming to terms with the realities of what's so and what's real and what's present, and to embrace the reality of that, and to become more at peace with those things, as opposed to a guru who wants to do something else. A guru will challenge you to discover who is it who believes that they have a problem. Who is the one who says, this is my problem? The therapeutic patient comes in and says, I have these problems. He's identified himself as being the problems. Now, the worst thing I could do would be to say, it's all just consciousness. This is the play of consciousness. Not to worry. You're not, it's all imagination. Yeah. That is such a dishonor of them and of the dream. It's like you're going and you're here in this dream, and you're not willing to participate in it, and that's a dishonor to it. If you're here, be involved. You don't have to be attached, but be 100% involved with it, because all of this is showing up for your own growth, for your own edification.
So you use the word growth there. Does that suppose that there's some sort of path?
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? That there's a path, that you're over here, which is an quote unquote unenlightened state, and you're going to go over here, which is an enlightened state. And that is the model for so many, that we're on this ladder that somehow we have to climb up and do meditation and go to satsangs and become a vegan and different stages in order to rise up to become one of these spiritual luminaries. But how do you let go of the idea that there is no path at all? The only way to do that is to just be with how this is, but that means letting go of the belief that you are living your life out of some remembered past, and that you're living your life into some kind of imagined future, and that there's this time linearity that began way back, 50 years ago when you were born, and it's going to continue on, hopefully, for decades after, where you will, cross over the fabled rainbow bridge. But you're on this pathway, and that's the model. But what would happen if you just took away the past and the future and said there is no moment that you're living into? There are no past moments that you're living out of. But there's no next moment here, that this truly, as Alan Watts has put it, is it. This is truly it. This moment is all of it. And there's nothing missing in this moment. All of consciousness is always, always present for you every single moment. There's nothing missing. There's no more consciousness around the corner or down the street or on the other side of the world or something. You're seeing the whole thing right here. To wrap your mind around that, if you want to use the analogy of having a mind, saying that this is truly it, and I'm seeing what is. There's nothing else to see. This is absolutely all of it.
There was a point there that made me question about the mind. Do you believe, I suppose that's probably the wrong word, but do you accept that we have a mind?
Well, I don't accept that there's a we.
Yeah, okay. You know where I'm going. You know what I'm trying to grasp at.
Yeah, the mind. Well, I kind of, since we're in the computer age here, I look at the the ego as being like a software application that gets installed, and the mind is like the operating system. So the mind is there, and it gets installed. The ego gets installed. I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, when that sense of differentiation comes in, and you start to separate. I am not the bottle. I am not the breast. Sometimes I yell, and they don't come and take care of me and things. So, but that sense of separation comes in there. But it's all part of a dance that somehow consciousness wants to do for itself. Who knows why? A lot of it, these questions are going to end up with there's no rhyme, no reason why these things unfold or unravel as they do. It's just how it is. And if you surrender to how it is, as opposed to submitting to how it is, submitting is, giving up, and surrendering is more giving in and just allowing it and being with it, to be with whatever shows up. And I think that's really the best way of navigating, and that's the wrong word, of just experiencing the dream. I like the philosophy that the Stoics talk about, amor fati. Amor fati. Are you familiar with
No,
that?
not no.
Yeah, amor fati is two words, and it means the love of one's fate, the love of one's destiny, of one's path, of one's where you're going, of just how things are. You love that enormously. You embrace it 100%, instead of doing this resistance. It's in the resistance that you create the suffering. If you don't resist it and just experience it, then it just becomes like, well, it's pain, because pain just comes with the territory. But when personal pain is viewed through the lens of an individual ego, it's then interpreted and experienced as suffering, as personal suffering. It's happening to me.
What role does suffering, do you believe that suffering has in that awakening process?
Say that again. What
suffering? What role do you think that suffering plays in the awakening process?
I suppose it's different for everyone. Some people, I would suspect, well, we know, they have that personal suffering through the personal attachment to the sense of doership, because the ego attaches itself to, I am this thinker, I am this feeler, I am this speaker, I am this doer. These things are happening to me, which is very much akin to having the character in the play identifying himself so much with what his character is doing. The actor, he actually becomes that. So he starts to think that whatever is happening to the character is in fact happening to me or to him. So he's made that kind of connection, and he doesn't differentiate that and see, well, hey, the character is going through this, but the actor is not doing that. He's going through it, but he's not attached to it. For example, like at the end of Othello, Iago gets taken away to the torturers, but the actor who's playing Iago does fine. He goes out for a beer with Othello, after the play is over. So nobody gets hurt because he's not attached to it. But if you're attached, that's where the suffering will come in, because there's a personal ego-based connection that you've made to that.
Yeah. So the characters that are playing the dream, the characters that are playing this out, what do they have a choice, or is choice sort of encoded within the dream?
Well, let me ask you this. One of your guys wrote Romeo and Juliet. So do Romeo and Juliet, do they have choices? Could they choose at the end of the play not to commit suicide?
Well, it wouldn't be the play, would it?
It wouldn't be the play. And it seems like every single thing that led up to him, they were making rational choices. It all seemed to be fine. So then when they finally ended up making those choices, it just seemed to be, well, yeah, I can see why they would come to that kind of realization, with that kind of connection that they had with each other. There was no other way it could have played out. I think that's true for all of us. I think that free will is an illusion, and I also think that it's important for us to pretend that it's not. So we can pretend like, I have this choice to hear and do that and all that, because the dream characters that you've created will, as a rule, hold you personally responsible for what it is that you're doing. They will connect you with that, and they'll come along and cancel your vote and lock you up.
So if I was to play devil's advocate on that, Chuck,
Sure.
people would say, well, you're just completely lacking self-responsibility.
Oh, no, you're always responsible, but you're just not to blame. There's no fault or blame for what happens, but you are 100% responsible. And here's the paradox. You also have 100% no control.
That is a paradox, yeah.
Yes, it is. And if you want to, quote unquote, deal in this wonderful, wacky world of non-duality, you got to be comfortable with paradox.
Mm. Yeah, that's why I called this podcast The Dancing Paradox, because my mind simply cannot comprehend. I'm very much a seeker. I'm stuck in the seeking mode, and it drives me nuts a lot of the time.
Oh, no, I want you to go seek. I want you to seek all you want. Just go seek until you can find. see what you can find. If you didn't seek, you'd be pushing it down and saying, I'm quite beyond seeking. I'm much aloof than that. Yeah. No, that's dishonoring it. If seeking is what's showing up for you, you got to go on that track. You got to go on that quest.
Yeah. That's a great point. And what I like about you, Chuck, is that you keep everything so radically simple. When a lot of the people who talk about this, it goes very complex, and we start talking about esoteric levels of consciousness and all this type of stuff, and it gets quite difficult for the average person, let's say, with respect to comprehend what's actually being spoken about.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've seen that myself in many times. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I wrote my very, very first book back in the 70s called Enlightenment for Beginners. I remember going to the Bodhi Tree bookstore, which is it was at that point the most famous philosophy, psychology kind of bookstore in West LA. And I would go there and I'd wander up and down the aisles, and I'd see all these books and volumes about non-dualism or Eastern philosophy, and I'd open them up and I'd see massive appendices and all these strange words in Sanskrit and levels and layers and slicing and dicing. And I came home and I said, there's got to be an easier way. If the truth is truly simple, it should be able to be put simply. And so I remember very distinctly going to my house. I was living up in Ojai, where Krishnamurti lived. And I remember writing down all the words that I did not want to use in the book that I was wanting to write. Words like ascended master.
Yeah.
On, and you can just imagine all those words, because I felt that they were tricky words. There were buzzwords that you would be going along, you would read that word, and then in the reader's mind, it would trigger something, and the reader would probably tangentially go off saying, well, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about this. And then that would lead to another juncture and on, and they'd be way lost. So what I wanted to do was to simplify it to such an extent that there was very little way that they could lose what I was saying. So I wanted to use almost monosyllabic words, very simply put, and just use, 10, 12, 15 words on each page where they could actually follow it step by step. And then, there's the end of it, and take it or leave it, you get what you get. But, and so I did it that way. And some people really responded. Other people continued to want, no, it's got to be more esoteric. It's got to be special. And I noticed one thing, and maybe you had too, Alex, that a lot of the people that do that almost wear their, it's almost like a spiritual pride. Oh, I've read these books and I've studied these old texts and I've sat at the feet of these gurus and I've went to these satsangs over here and I studied in India. And it's like they're special certifications of being special, and that look at me, but it's spiritual pride, obviously, and some I think that spiritual pride really is like the last bastion of a terrified ego that's getting dangerously close to being annihilated, and is fearful of that and wants to say, no, I know this, and this is what I have, and that temptation of being special and knowing more is really hard, and then if you factor in anything sexual, oh my gosh, it gets real, as we all know, they can go down pretty nasty, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a couple of things there. I mean, I've been there, to be fair. Like, I've read, I don't know, countless books, and I sort of wore that with a badge of honor. I've read this many books, and this is what I've took from it, and now, and it pisses off the Christians sometimes. I say things like, if there was somewhere that the devil would hang out, he'd hang out in the spiritual marketplace, because that is the last step. It seems that that's the last step that the ego is resistant to release.
I totally concur. Right on.
So yeah, the Christians hate that stuff, but it makes me giggle, and we have good fun about it in the end, anyway. Chuck, we've meditation and self-inquiry. If we can talk about that a little bit like the books, I suppose. I tend to see people doing meditation and self-inquiry. They've read a lot about it. They think they might live a more peaceful life doing these exercises. But what I tend to see is that all the people, and again, I've been there, they're just trying to feel better. They're just trying to have a better experience. To what degree is that like a hindrance, if there is such a thing, to the waking up process?
I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know. I've known people who have had experiences without having ever meditated at all. And I've known other people who have meditated for years. And, they had little insights and aha moments, but nothing really explosive at all. So who knows why it happens? I've talked to people who have claimed that sometimes using like LSD or 5-MeO-DMT or one of the real heavy-duty psychedelics are really quite useful to expand a person's awareness, at least, and then it would give him a chance to have had that as kind of, oh, I remember what that was like, and maybe I can meditate into that thing. But it's that progression of wanting to do this. And if you look at it carefully, I think that that's all ego-based. The ego loves to have movement, either in thought or feeling or words, or it likes to have you go from what is into what isn't. It wants you to move there, because in the moving of that, in just setting up that we're over here and we should go over here, that feeds the belief that the ego is separate. Because you can't move towards something that you, like you say, you already are. And the ego loves that, but it's very clever, because it'll disguise itself. It'll disguise itself. Like, let's go sit at the feet of this guru. Let's go, work on this esoteric new spiritual practice at Esalen or something. But it gives you a goal. Yeah. And as long as you're on that goal or on that path, the ego feels, okay, now we're going someplace. We're getting some more stuff that we can put in our library, our treasure chest of stuff that we can spout off at cocktail parties and stuff. And quote this person or that person about what I know this, and I did this, and I did sensory deprivation tanks, and on and on and on. It's all spiritual pride. It's like, look at me. The ego just loves that stuff. And when it disguises itself in the realms of, yeah, but this is all very spiritual. You're doing this for spiritual, so it's somehow okay, or somehow more permissible. But it's always moving away from what is. And that's the main thing of the ego, because the ego does not want to stay present. The ego wants to go someplace where it's not. And the ego thrives and survives by inserting itself into stories that it remembers about itself from this past that it's carrying around and believing, or by inserting itself into stories about what's going to happen down the road. But the ego in the present moment is in a very weakened state because it has nothing feeding it. It has to feed on something. And the things that it likes to feed on is what's not present. Either so it goes to the past to get what's not present, or to the future. The goal stuff is great. It just wants to go from point A to point B. So that helps to validate that separation, that ego. But, when you think about it, Alex, the ego is just a bundle of thoughts. It's a point of view that's centered around an idea that I am the thinker, I am the feeler, I am the speaker, I am the doer. That there's a person in there that all of these things are attached to, and the origin of, and I'm doing all of this. And instead of recognizing that it's all just consciousness. I mean, where is not consciousness? There's no such thing as not consciousness. There's no such thing as not God. It's all God. It's all consciousness. But the ego is not ready to do that. The ego wants to hang on to thinking that, no, yeah, there's God, but there's also me there too. I want to be there too. But no, it won't work. It's like when you get to the center, there won't be anybody there to greet you. Sorry.
Yeah, I look at the animal kingdom, and I do consider, when I was sort of something happened in this consciousness, however you want to explain it, and I was considering the animal kingdom, and I thought, would an ant have any idea that there is even a sense of existence there? Would it even know it's alive? Would it have the mental capacity to be able to make that happen? And what difference are we as human beings to the mosquito that might be biting us at nighttime? What difference are we in the sense of we're just a minuscule part of the natural kingdom? I don't think there's a question there. I mean, could you extrapolate maybe?
Well, in spite of what it looks like, the dream world is not multitudinous in its splendor. It looks that way, and it's not. It is all quintessentially only one thing. And the dream world that you experience has all arisen from within your own awareness. It shows up when there's a you that shows up to witness it and to observe it into manifestation. If you're not there, it's not there.
Okay.
When you go to sleep at night and go into dreamless sleep, the dream world literally just collapses unto, a singularity in your heart of hearts and remains dormant, you can say there. And then in the morning, you just recreate the whole thing, the web and just get caught again on the attachments that you have that you've continued and are continuing and buying into. But there's that realm of you have to be there, much like you have to be there if you ever want to see a rainbow. For a rainbow to show up, there has to be the sun and the rain, and there has to be an observer who is standing, interestingly enough, at 42 degrees. It's funny, you know, 42 is at 42 degrees. If you're standing at 42 degrees relative to the sun and the rain, there's the rainbow. You have to be there, though, for that rainbow to show up. You have to be present for the world to show up. Without you, no world.
So the question that arises here is, Chuck Hillig's on the other side of this screen. To me.
So.
Sorry?
It would seem so.
It would certainly, it's apparently happening. So the question that arises there is Chuck there, or is Chuck a figment of my imagination that I have sort of created for myself? Yeah, go on, sorry.
You are not appearing in my dream. I am showing up in your dream. You are the source of the dream that you're having. And your mission, path, whatever, is to own your own dream. You have to own your own dream and hold yourself 100% responsible. This is what's showing up. This is where amor fati comes in. When you love and embrace what's showing up for you at this moment in this time, without having any resistance to it, without saying no, without saying yes, but, without saying I like 99.9% of it, but the other, I don't like that part. I remember this great quote by Nisargadatta. He says, you're having a dream that you call the world. And he says, the dream is not your problem. Nisargadatta says, your problem is that you only like certain parts of the dream and you don't like the other parts of the dream. So you differentiate. You say yes to this and say no to something else. But what would happen if you just made yes your default position in life? Made yes your default position in life, so that no matter what showed up, you said yes. And then people say, well, what happens if you see somebody getting hurt, and a kid getting abused or something? You're just going to say yes to that? No, you go over, you say no. Then you handle that. But what you're doing is you're saying yes to the fact that you're saying no. Yes to the fact that you're saying no. So the last thing that you actually say to yourself is yes. You put everything that shows up in a context of yes. I'm embracing the wholeness and the splendor of who I am in all of my awfulness that possibly and certainly shows up from time to time. It does, no question about it. But horror is part of that.
Yeah. I think a lot questions arise quite often. If there was a God or consciousness, whatever, why would they do bad things? Why would there be, as you said, children being abused and whatever else? And I find that like a question that can't really be answered by a sense of self, because what is arising there is there's darkness within me here. So to put a judgment over there on somebody else or anything else, like, to me, it's like hypocritical.
It's a question that comes up a lot. And I remember, and I'm sure you're familiar with the Bhagavad Gita with Krishna and Arjuna. In that story, Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and Arjuna is lamenting the fact that he's got to go down and fight that huge battle down in the valley, and there's 100,000 of his kinsmen on the other side, and he's got to, be involved in this horrific battle where everybody's going to slash and burn and kill and maim and pain and suffering and horror. And he's lamenting that to Krishna, and Krishna says, "Oh, don't worry about it." I'm paraphrasing, but he says it's all part of a dream. It's part of a dance. Get it. Fight the good fight. You're here. This is what's showing up for you in this moment. Play out your part. Play out your role. Throw yourself into it. It's all going to be okay. And it is always okay. Things always end up okay if you're willing to give up your idea about what okay is supposed to look like. Okay always looks exactly like how it is. And I think that it's upon you to align yourself with saying how it is how it needs to be. Sometimes that's tough, but because you have to do that without having any justification for saying it, you can say, I don't know why this needs to be happening, but it's happening. It's showing up like this. That's what's so. And the way to affect any kind of possible change is to get with what's so, to tell the truth about it, and then to move forward from that point. Because, you can only change from where you're at. I can't go to my living room from the bedroom right now because I'm not in my bedroom. I'm in my office here. So I have to go to my bedroom and then into the living room. So you change from where you're at.
Yeah. So what, like in the new age people, a lot of them often talk about creating your own reality. Based on what you've said here, there is no creating going on. There is simply being aware of what's happening. Would that be correct? Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, there's no personal one who's actually creating it. It seems, however, that what shows up is somehow resonating with its reaction to what you fear, what you desire, what you believe, what you hope for, what you expect. All of those things seem to play a part in it. And then it seems to align itself with it because the universe loves you so much that it wants to give you what you are expecting. If you expect to have your relationships not be healthy and always to meet somebody who's going to be taking advantage of you or betraying you and stuff, you will seek out and only be attracted to those people that will fulfill that function for you through your expectations because you want to be right and the universe wants to support that.
Would that be where the idea of unconditional loving would come in? It's completely supportive and forever. It's like eternally loving.
Yeah, unconditional loving. That's tough because most most of our relationships are conditional. I mean, and I think it's probably within the realm of the dream world a very wise thing to do. So I used to encourage my clients to love unconditionally as much as you can, but only make a conditional commitment. The commitment to the relationship has to be conditional. The love can be unconditional. I mean, why would you want to stay with somebody who is abusing your children or freebasing cocaine or something in the back room and stuff? So the commitment is conditional, but the love can be unconditional. You could separate, you could love them unconditionally 12,000 miles away. You don't have to live with everybody you love. You don't have to live with everybody you love.
Jim Newman, I'm not sure if you know him. He made a comment.
I know of him. Yeah.
I asked him a question. I can't remember what I asked, but he turned around and it was quite profound. He said, you can't get away from unconditional freedom or unconditional love because you're bathing in it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, you're swimming in love. I mean, love is really all that there is. And if you don't see it, what stops you from not seeing it is a belief that you have that says, I know what love should look like. And it doesn't look like this. And if it doesn't look like this, then it's not it. But what would happen if you just took the position that said, love is what's showing up? This is love. Love is truly what is. Love is what is. If you lived in that space, then you would be swimming in love. You would be love itself.
It's almost too simple for the mind to accept.
That's what makes it so damn difficult. It's so damn obvious. It's like, no, that can't be so. We just skim on over it. And the part that skims on over it is that ego that doesn't want to do that, because the ego knows that that is like where paradise is. That's where the opening is. And the ego knows very well it cannot exist in paradise. It only wants to be on its way to paradise.
Yeah.
It only wants to be seeking, doesn't want to be arriving. That's too dangerous. Doesn't want to get close. In fact, if it starts to get really close to, wow, a real opening, it'll subtly sabotage you and give you some other, something else to chase, some other distraction to go on around there. And it'll pull you away for a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade on different pursuits and stuff, because it wants to protect itself from annihilation. And it'll do that through distraction and really, wow, look at this over there. There's something shiny. Let's go check that out. Or there's a new guru in town. Let's go see what that's about.
Do you think that the conditions have to be ripe? There's like a ripening of whatever it is, consciousness for the recognition of it? Or do you think it can be forced?
I don't think it can be forced, but I do think that somehow ripeness plays into it. There's this great line from Shakespeare's King Lear, and the line is, ripeness is all. Ripeness is everything. When there's a ripeness there, that will show up. And if they're not ripe, it's not ripe. No matter how many times you knock on the door, it's not going to handle, it's not going to, open. But who knows what triggers that? Who knows why that would happen? And remember, all of this is not happening specifically to a person, because there's no people here. It looks like there's people here and there's people there, but there's no people. Nisargadatta wasn't a person, neither is Ramana Maharshi or Christ or Buddha. All of these energies have their origin within the heart of hearts of who you are. You created Buddha and Nisargadatta and all of those people. They have their origin from within you. You wrote the Quran, you wrote the Bible, you wrote the Bhagavad Gita, you wrote the Upanishads. None of these things have their origins separately from you. They emanate from the heart of who you are. All of these things. Rumi said it beautifully. He said, why do you weep? Rumi said, don't you know that you are the source, and this whole world is springing up from you. This world is springing up from you. I mean, if you just look around your room, wherever you're sitting and you're listening to this right now, all of that has emanated from within you. You are the origin of the world. You are that. All of that is a manifestation of who you are right there, right now. It's not something that's foreign to you. You are the source of the world. You are that. And to own that and go, ooh, wow, that's pretty heavy. Yes, so that means that all of the people that you know and love, they're all, for lack of a better term, dream characters who have shown up on your stage. You've invited them to play in your play. You've invited them to play in your play, and you've cast them like a cosmic casting, central casting there, and you've cast them to play different parts in your psychodramas and help you to reenact the pains of what it was like when you were younger, or, and then try to get a different or better ending than it was. And so it's a great play is what's going on here. And Maharshi said a number of times, it's all a great game of pretending. It's all pretending. But then, we pretend like we're not pretending.
Yeah.
We pretend like it's all very serious. and we take this seriously. Nothing wrong with that. But we can't get lost. You know, the analogy that I use is if you go into a maze, like a corn maze, you know, you can go into mazes and get lost real easily because they're meant to confuse you. So you go down here, you get a blind alley, and you go back and you double back and you get trapped and back and forth. And you can make mistakes in a maze, but we're not walking through a maze. People think, oh, my life is like, no, it's not a maze. You are not walking through a maze. You're walking through a labyrinth. And a labyrinth, you know, a labyrinth, they're very different. You enter a labyrinth, and yes, you go zigzag and all around, and you get close to the center, and then it pulls you away a couple of times. And then finally, inevitably, invariably, you come right down to the center again. But you cannot get lost in a labyrinth. To get to the center in a labyrinth, all you have to do is to keep on keeping on. Just keep on keeping on. But we, you know, it's easy to lose heart when you get really close to the center and then, oh, I almost have it. I almost have it. But then your path, your life's path starts to pull you away, you know. And if you look at a big 12-ring labyrinth, you're way out there at the end. You know, you say, oh, I've lost my way. I can't find it. And then, but it just keep on going, keep on going. And when you get to the center, maybe the realization is, hey, there was no path to walk anyway. I never left it. I was always home. I was never, you know, lost or abandoned or needed to find something. It was just play. And to relax into that, to sit in the middle of that incredible mystery of it, and to love it all for being the way that it is, and to love it for being the way that it isn't.
Chuck, what's the difference between non-duality, as you might define it, and solipsism?
Solipsism is like, I am here and everything else is out there, but there's still that dualism. There's like, I'm here and there's something out there, and this is different than me, but somehow I'm the center of it. In non-dualism, there's no center at all. There's no center at all. In solipsism, there is a center that says, I am all of these wonderful things. But non-dualism says, no, there's really no center at all. So when I talk about you being the origin, it's not the you that you think you are.
Yeah.
Huge difference between you who you think you are and you who you really are. You who you really are has no edges or boundaries or moving parts or anything like that. You who you think you are is the avatar, the one that is identified with having a past. I was raised here. These are my parents. These are my kids. These are my siblings. These are the schools I went to and my jobs and all that stuff. That's who you think you are. But that's the character, as opposed to who you really are is the actor. And there's really only one of us really here. And there's only one voice. And, you know, it seems like maybe it's a dialogue going on between the two of us, but it's not a dialogue at all. It's a monologue. There's only one voice here. It's just coming out of two different mouths.
Mm. And what difference is that from the idea of no thing, nothingness, and oneness?
I don't know. You know, we can get lost in the words of nothingness and awareness and consciousness.
Mm.
I've gone... I have some friends of mine that continually talk about those words. I'm not sure what they mean, and maybe they mean different things to them at different times even. It's on the other side of the words that I think we need to go, or you know, in the space between the words, in that emptiness between the words is where the answer is, if an answer is what you're looking for, but where the peace is, because the words are by nature dualistic. Dualistic by nature. The moment that you say what a thing is, you automatically imply, well, if it's that, then it's not all these other things. And that's the wonderful, wacky world of dualism again. So it's only in the silence that I think you can find anything at all that you'd be looking for. And that's really what it ends up with. And that's why with these questions, the questions, as long as you continue to ask questions, your mind and the universe, call it what you will, is almost obliged to respond with some kind of answer. And then that answer then in turn triggers another question, which then triggers another answer. Yeah. And it's like those, remember when we were kids, we had those slinky toy things we'd put at the top of a stair and they'd go down the stairs. One would lead to the other, one would lead, but the momentum of that would just move it on down. But what would happen if you got to the end of questions and stopped questioning altogether? At the end of the questions, when you run out of questions and just sit in the quietude, in the mystery of just what is, without having any questions, just stop and be silent. See what shows up at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely concur. Chuck, you said you were 28, 29 when you went to see Maharishi. How did you integrate that realization in your life?
Well, I didn't see him. He died when I was 10 years old in 1950, because I was born in 1940. And but I went to his ashram and sat in the cave where, he sat for years and years and years. I still have some rocks that I got from that area on Arunachala. I don't know. It's hard to say how I integrated it, but I guess it was like a pilgrimage for me. I had to go to that place and finally see this for myself, where he was sitting, where he was, and I don't know. I can't really say what happened to me there, and I don't want to make anything up, but it was a powerful experience.
Mm. Which you dreamed up.
Yeah, which me? Well, the me who I thought I was wanting to go over there. And it's not like I made a conscious decision. I don't know why I do things. I don't know why I say things. In fact, I'm sure that I'll never see this. I never watch any of my stuff. When you mentioned that thing with Rick Archer, I said, "Oh my God, I remember doing that. I've never seen it. I don't know what I said. I don't know what I'm going. What I'm saying now. It just kind of shows up, and I let it rip and see what happens. Beyond that, I don't know what else I can say."
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, Chuck. Well, we've done an hour, and I've loved speaking to you. So thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you asking me, because, like I said, nobody usually asks me to come on and to do this, and I like to talk about this stuff, but there's not. I don't know why I do, but I like this, and I appreciate having the opportunity. So thank you for that.
No, that's great. You sent me a great quote by Oscar Wilde yesterday.
Yeah, wasn't that great? I love Oscar Wilde. Yes, love talking about nothing. It's the only thing I know anything about.
Yeah, beautiful. Chuck, you're an author. You've written numerous books. Do you want to point people anywhere, Amazon or anything for your books?
Yeah, they can go to my website, Chuck Hillig, ChuckHillig.com, or you can just go on Amazon, or just do a Google search on Chuck Hillig. And I'm every once in a while I do that, and I'm astounded by the number of links to my name, because there's some of my books are in other languages, like German or Dutch or even Russian, Italian. So yeah, just go there and explore, and like Alex had said, there's a number of videos of me at Sand and other places on YouTube. You can go see me. So, and I'm available. You can email me. I live alone here. I live about 60 miles southwest of DC in the Virginia woods. I've been here about 16 years. I love it. Go out every day, pick up trash around.
Wow.
My Saturn is picking up trash. I do that for half an hour every day, 7 days a week. Rain or shine, I'm out there picking up litter and cigarette butts and stuff. Yeah, gets me away from the damn computer.
Are you writing anything else?
I am. I'm writing a book that I keep on going through more and more drafts of it, and hopefully, we'll see. Hopefully, it will come out next year, but we'll see.
Okay, wonderful. If I can help in any way of promoting that, just let me know.
I will do that. Yeah, thanks, Alex. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Okay, Chuck. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, and happy voting as well.
Yes, I'm off to do it right now. Thanks again.
Bye-bye. Bye.